soft night where truth begins to whisper. Sometimes, late at night, when the world finally grows quiet and no one is asking for anything, there is a small trembling inside your chest. A longing you don't name, a hunger you don't explain. It rises the way a tide rises, slow, inevitable, ancient, and you know it well. You've spent years trying to silence it with responsibilities, with routines, with people who needed you more than they loved you. Years trying to smother it with strength, pretending you were fine, pretending you knew exactly who you were supposed to be. But body remembers what the mind tries to forget. And the soul, God, the soul remembers everything. People think addiction is a moral failure. They think it looks like bottles hidden in kitchen drawers, or secrets tucked beneath trembling hands. But women like you know addiction wears softer faces. Sometimes it looks like checking your phone for a message you know won't come. Sometimes it looks like replaying the same memory because it hurts. And yet, it hurts less than the silence. Sometimes it looks like staying busy just to avoid meeting your own loneliness. Sometimes it looks like holding on to a love that has already walked away. And sometimes, it looks like a woman who has spent her whole life tending to others, suddenly realizing she has no idea how to tend to herself. The world calls these things weakness, but somewhere deep within you, a quieter voice, older than your wounds, keeps whispering, "No, this is something else. This is something sacred trying to rise." Jung once wrote that what we call addiction is often the soul trying to speak in the only language we've left it. A language made of longing, of repetition, of patterns we cannot escape, not because we are broken, but because something inside us is asking to be seen. Maybe that's why the craving feels so relentless. Not the craving for the drink, or the man, or the night that numbs you, but the craving to finally feel whole. To finally be allowed to want something for yourself without apology. To feel seen the way you've spent your entire life seeing others. To inhale without shrinking. To exist without disappearing. You think your pain is a private failure. You think your habits make you weak. But what if the ache you're ashamed of is actually a doorway? What if the very thing you hide from everyone is the way God has been trying to reach you? Because the truth is, not everyone feels this kind of hunger. Not everyone breaks open this deeply. Not everyone carries an emptiness so vast it becomes its own kind of prayer. Only certain souls do. The ones who have lived entire seasons of their lives holding the world together while quietly falling apart. The ones who have loved past reason, forgiven past breaking, endured more than anyone ever bothered to notice. The ones who wake in the night with a feeling they can't name, a tug, a pull, a call. Women who have survived marriages, betrayals, silences. Women who have given too much, stayed too long, bent too far. Women who look strong on the outside, but whose inner world is a river, still carrying the debris of everything they were never allowed to feel. Addiction, whatever form it takes for you, isn't here to shame you, show you where you've abandoned yourself, where your soul has been thirsty for years, where the girl you used to be is still calling out for you from the shadows. And maybe tonight, in this soft dimness, you can feel it, that quiet trembling that isn't fear and isn't weakness, but the beginning of some deeper truth rising. A truth that says, nothing you have ever reached for was foolish. It was your soul trying to come home. The spiritual thirst, the hunger that nothing in this world can satisfy. There is a kind of hunger that does not live in the body. It lives beneath it, under the ribs, under the memories, under the versions of you that learn to survive by becoming small. It's the hunger that rises on quiet nights, when the house is clean, the responsibilities handled, the children asleep, and there is no noise left to hide behind. Most people never feel this hunger. They are satisfied with small comforts, predictable routines, quiet distractions. They move through life with a sort of gentle numbness that is enough for them. And perhaps that is a mercy, but not for you. You have always carried a thirst that scares you a little. Bribe because it's deeper than desire had. It shows up in strange ways. Reprint for food not because you're hungry, but because something inside you is starving for warmth. You reach for a man not because he deserves you, it because part of you remembers what it championships, what it get lilos, achievement, busyness, because being still feels like sinking. This isn't weakness. This is the soul remembering what it was made for. Jung once said that the most dangerous thing a person can do is mistake a spiritual need for a worldly one. Bilingual, what this hunger becomes: a search for God disguised as a craving for anything that might soothe the ache. You think you're longing for attention, but really you're longing to feel alive again. You think you want the touch of someone familiar, but really you want to be seen in the places you've gone invisible. You think you're craving escape, but it's meaning you're starving for. Sense of connection to something larger, something true, something that won't leave. And that's holy in its own way.
Peach. Because women like you,
women who have walked through marriages that felt more like endurance tests than love stories, women who have carried families that never learned to carry them back. You know what it means to lose yourself piece by piece, until one day you look in the mirror and the woman staring back feels like someone you used to know. So the hunger arrives, not to punish you, but to wake you. It whispers, there is more than this. There has always been more than this. And the more you ignore it, the louder it becomes. It fills your chest with an ache you can't name. It pulls you toward old patterns, old lovers, old wounds. Not because you're meant to return to them, but because your soul is trying to show you what you're still searching for in all the wrong places. It pulls you toward comfort, even when comfort hurts, because the heart will cling to anything that resembles home, even if home was where you first learned to abandon yourself. This is why the craving feels endless, because what you're actually craving cannot be found in a bottle, in a man, in a night where you disappear for a little while. It can only be found in the one place you have feared going, inward, into the silence, into the truth, into the rooms inside you that you closed long ago because no one ever taught you how to hold what was living there. Frontline is not a curse. It is an invitation, a call to reclaim the pieces of yourself that you had to give up just to make it through the life you were dealt. A call to return to the woman you were before life taught you to shrink, blinking, before love taught you to settle, before duty taught you to disappear. And maybe you're not ready to answer yet. Maybe part of you is still holding on to the things you know how to lose yourself in. That's all right. The soul is patient. Blackmail. It will wait. It always waits. Meng that burns from somewhere you cannot touch is simply the truth of who you are, calling you back home. The descent. When your shadow takes your hand and leads you into the underworld of your own heart. There comes a moment, quiet, unnoticed when the ache inside you becomes too heavy to outrun. Not dramatic, not loud, just a soft collapse somewhere beneath the ribs. A moment when the mask you've worn for years suddenly feels too tight, too heavy, too far from who you really are. This is usually when the shadow appears, not as a monster, not as darkness trying to swallow you, but as a guide, civilized companion who has been waiting for you to finally grow tired of pretending you are fine. The shadow is the part of you that carries everything life taught you to hide, every anger you swallowed, every desire you buried, every boundary you never spoke, every tear you felt but never allowed to fall. And when it rises, it feels like falling into a place you once promised yourself you would never return to. A place inside you that feels like a basement filled with old versions of yourself. Pilgrim who forgave too quickly, bilingual who stayed too long, the heart that learned to love quietly because loving loudly was once punished. This descent is frightening, forcibly deflate, because it strips away everything you used to use as proof that you were strong enough. Your independence, your habit of coping alone, your rehearsed smile, your practiced silence. Down here, none of that works. Unpredictable, you cannot outrun your truth anymore. And maybe for the first time, you don't want to. You sit with the memories you kept in the dark. You touch the parts of yourself you once abandoned because no one ever held them with tenderness. You listen to the version of you who cried quietly into pillows because she didn't want to burden anyone. And in this dim, trembling space, something unexpected happens. You begin to hear yourself. Not the self you show the world. Baseball those who performs strength. But the self who has been whispering for years, I'm tired, I'm hurting, I miss who I used to be. Please don't leave me behind again. The shadow here to destroy you. Tightening, it's here to return you to the woman you were forced to abandon in order to survive. Jung called this the underworld. Pharmaceutical, your own depths, your own forgotten truths, your own unexpressed emotions. It is not a punishment, it is an initiation. Contains the soul and you, a woman who has held too much for too long. You deserve to meet the parts of yourself that never got to breathe. Down here you realize something else too, that the addictions, the cravings, the habits you hate yourself for were never the real problem. They were signals, flares sent up by the parts of you that needed to be acknowledged. You didn't reach for the drink, the man, the distraction because you were weak. You reached for them because the girl inside you was drowning and didn't know how else to call for help. So the shadow rises, takes your hand, and pulls you into the depth where the truth waits. And the truth is simple, painful, blackberry, and liberating all at once. You have been carrying wounds that were never yours to carry alone. You have been living in shapes that were too small for your soul, in ways that required you to forget yourself. This is not the end. It is the threshold. It is the moment your soul says, if you will not stop for yourself, I will bring you to a place where you finally have to. And so you go down, slowly, reluctantly, biking but steady. You go down because something in you knows that the woman you are becoming, firefight is waiting in the dark. And she is tired of waiting alone.
the breaking of patterns.
Why you keep repeating the same pain. There is a strange ache that returns to you again and again. Different faces, different years, but somehow the same story. You meet someone new, yet the familiar heaviness appears. Colleges you try to choose differently, yet your heart moves toward the same kind of wound. Bingo you promise yourself, never again. But somehow, again becomes the only thing you know how to find. And maybe you've wondered, pressing late at night, when the house is finally still, why do I always end up here? What is wrong with me? Why can't I learn? But nothing is wrong with you. You call repeating the same mistake is often the soul trying to resolve what the heart wasn't allowed to heal the first time. Patterns don't return to punish you. They return to exactly true. But free you rarely begins with exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that sinks into your bones, pedested. I can't keep living like this. That whisper is sacred. It is the first crack in the cycle. Because the truth is, you don't repeat pain because you choose it. You repeat it because pain becomes familiar, and the familiar becomes a home you don't know how to leave. We recreate what we once survived, not because we want to suffer, but because the psyche believes it can rewrite the ending prerequisite if it just tries one more time. You return to emotionally distant men because once, long ago, love and distance arrived in the same breath. You stay too long because once, long ago, leaving felt like abandonment instead of protection. You silence your needs because once, long ago, too much cost you affection. And so the pattern repeats, not out of failure, but out of longing. A longing to finally feel safe in the places you once felt small. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, a kind of spiritual gravity that pulls you back, flooring, to the unhealed place. Boxing so you can reclaim the part of yourself you left behind. Every pattern is a doorway. Every repetition is a message. Every heartbreak is a lantern, illuminating the part of you that still believes you must earn love by suffering for it. What if the reason you keep meeting the same pain is because your soul is trying to show you, line back, where you deserve something more? What if every again is really a gentle plea, a soft nudge from within saying, let's try it differently this time? Not by fixing another person, not by enduring more than you should, not by proving you are worthy of the love you have already given too freely, but your self-satisfaction where the old version of you would have disappeared. Because patterns don't break find the right person. They break when we finally become the woman who no longer betrays herself for closure to keep a pattern alive. Marginalized, and maybe breaking the cycle, blockers and look like courage at first. Flushing it looks like something quieter, like not replying this time, like stepping back when your body tenses, like listening to the small voice that whispers, not this again, you deserve softer. Sometimes the cycle breaks the moment you choose peace over longing. Sometimes it breaks the moment you stop negotiating forestry with the version of love that keeps wounding you. Sometimes it breaks the moment you realize that the ache you feel is not a call to return, but a call to rise. Surrendered, this is how the soul frees you. Not by removing the pattern, but by giving you the strength to walk away from it. Every time you choose differently, shakes, even if your hands tremble, battlefield of you comes back home. A part of you thought was gone, forgot how to love. A part of you that has been waiting for the day you finally say,
No more. That is the day the cycle ends.
that is the day you begin again. Not as the woman the world shaped you to be, but as the woman you were always meant to be.
The becoming, when the soul begins to rise.
After the long descent, there comes a moment, quiet, almost shy, when something inside you shifts. Not a breakthrough, not a revelation, more like a soft uncoiling, as if a part of your soul that had been curled up in the dark finally exhales. You don't rise all at once. No woman ever does. You rise the way dawn does, slowly at first, without anyone noticing, just a faint warmth returning to places that had been cold for too long. It happens in the smallest ways. One morning, you wake and realize your chest doesn't feel as heavy as it did yesterday. Later that week, you say no without apologizing for it. One afternoon, you catch your reflection in a window, brushing, and for the first time in years, blackmail yourself. Not entirely, but enough. This is the becoming, the quiet rebirth that follows the long descent into the parts of yourself you were once afraid to meet. People think transformation is a loud thing, a dramatic thing, a burning phoenix out of the ashes kind of thing. But women like you don't rise through fire. You rise through softness, through gentleness, through a tenderness toward yourself that you once reserved only for others. There is a new steadiness forming beneath your skin. Bishops built not from pretending you are strong, but from finally allowing yourself to be real. You are not the woman you were before the descent. You feel it in your bones. Your boundaries feel different now. Not sharp, not defensive, beautiful. Your heart feels different, still open, blinking to bleed just to prove its worth. The silence feels different, not the silence of peace, the kind that doesn't need to perform anything for anyone. This is what rising looks like for the soul. Not noise, not the everything match of them. You were way that resonuced only anything. This is what rising looks like, but not noise in the soul. This is what rising looks like for the soul, not the woman everything now. This is what rising looks like for the soul. You not noise that we were, nots become, not the everything match of them, the kind that doesn't need to perform anything for anyone, but clear then, you not noise that he were, nots become. This is what rising looks like for the soul. Not the woman looks like for the soul, but not noise that we were, nots become. This is what rising looks like for the soul. You feel like that not clear then, you feel that my home. This is what rising looks like for the soul. You not noise that we were, nots become. This is what rising looks like for the soul. Not the woman looks like for the soul. You feel like that the different means that it was saved. This is what rising looks like for the soul. You catch yourself everything that you can't live. This is what rising looks like for the soul. You feel that me-self, you not look at the lent to the nake. If you an other thing that you really saw, this is what rising looks like for the soul. You feel that you catch yourself everything that you can't live. This is what rising looks like for the soul. You not look at myself. You feel that myself becomes something. This is what rising looks like for the soul. Before the descent, the soul, correct, bondage, but honesty, des. And somewhere deep inside, you begin to realize something sacred, that the woman you are becoming is not someone new, but someone ancient. Someone who existed long before life taught you to shrink. Someone who remembers her own worth in a way your wounds never could erase. Someone who has always known the way home. Jung said that the true self, Bible, is what emerges when we stop trying to be who the world told us to be. Blindness, and that is what you're tasting now. The first breath of life, bishops as the woman you were always meant to grow into. She rises slowly. She rises softly. She rises with a tenderness, flushing even you. Because for the first time in years, maybe decades, your rising isn't for anyone else. Not to hold a family together. Not to keep a relationship from breaking. Not to prove your strength. Not to earn love. This rising is yours. Entirely, quietly, beautifully yours. Refugees, you walk differently now. Not with pride, but with presence. You speak differently now, but truer. And the world responds to you differently, as if it can sense that you are no longer negotiating your value. But the most profound shift is the one that happens within. You stop chasing what was never meant to stay. You stop clinging to what was only meant to pass through. You stop apologizing for the space your soul needs to breathe. And somehow, almost mysteriously, life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a return. Return to softness. A return to truth. A return to yourself. Not the self you used to perform. Not the self you used to protect. But the quiet, luminous self who has been waiting at the center of your being arbitrarily. The descent was necessary. The breaking was necessary. The patterns were necessary. Because they brought you here, to this gentle threshold, buffering where the soul rises, not as someone healed, but as someone honest. And that honesty is the beginning of your new life. The integration, when the new self learns to walk in the world. There is a quiet strangeness, bribery in the days that follow a rebirth. Not a dramatic shift, just a subtle unfamiliarity, biologist, when the way your soul begins to inhabit your life again. Like walking through a house where the furniture hasn't moved, buffalo, but the light has changed completely. You begin to sense that something inside you, endment, has rearranged itself in ways the outer world cannot see. Prohibited. The becoming gives way, penetration to the something even more delicate, integration, bilingual, blindness. This is the part no one talks about, fiancé. The part where you try to live as the woman you finally met inside yourself, even as the world around you, line back, still expects the woman you used to be. It is a slow learning. Blindness. Some mornings you wake steady, clear, grounded, whole, as if your soul fits perfectly in your skin. And other mornings, you wake with an ache, a pull back toward your old ways of coping, the familiar patterns, the familiar silences. Do not mistake this for failure. This is simply you learning to walk again. Because the truth is, your new self doesn't yet know how to move through a world that taught your old self bribery by shrinking. You will feel the tension. You will feel the wobble. Blackjack, you will feel the temptation forced to return to who you were just to make others comfortable. But there is a softness inside you now that refuses to vanish again. A knowing. A quiet honesty. A tenderness toward your own truth that you can't unlearn. Integration is the art of staying close to yourself, even when the world pulls. It shows up in the smallest moments. You pause before saying yes because your body no longer lets you betray it. You leave the room, fishing when the energy feels wrong, because peace means more to you than performing strength. You walk away from conversations that ask you to explain your worth because you no longer negotiate with scarcity. You stop apologizing, gumming for needing light, or solitude, or softness, or truth. Not because you've become harder, but because you've become gentler with the parts of yourself that once lived in hiding. This is integration, honoring the woman you've become even when no one else understands her yet. And you will notice, slowly, that life begins to rearrange itself, frontline this new center inside you. Certain people fall away, not through anger, but through misalignment. Certain conversations lose their meaning. Certain patterns lose their magnetism. Certain forms of love lose their power over you. Bibliography, and yet something else arrives. Celibaceness, a kind of spaciousness, a kind of inner companionship you have never known before. You begin to trust yourself, Philippines in small ways at first, then in deeper ways. Trusting your intuition, trusting your body, trusting your silence, trusting your no, trusting your yes. The world becomes less overwhelming because you are no longer abandoning yourself to survive it. And somewhere in this gentle reorientation, you begin to understand a simple truth. You are not returning to your old life as a new woman. You are allowing your life to reshape itself, buffalo the woman you have finally become. Integration is not perfection. It is permission. Perish, permission to rest, permission to feel, peacefully to want, permission to walk slowly, permission to take up space, permission to tell the truth, permission to no longer carry what does not belong to you. And maybe without noticing, your life begins to soften around you, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You move through your days with a kind of rooted tenderness, a kind of quiet clarity, a kind of soulful steadiness arbitrarily that cannot be taken from you. The descent, the breaking, the rising. To walk in the world as a woman who has met herself in the dark, Kang, and chosen to bring herself back into the light. Not for anyone else, not as proof of survival, but simply because you are worthy of living a life that finally feels like yours. The return. Living with a softer heart in a world that once wounded you. There comes a time, after the descent, after the breaking, after the rising, when life invites you to return. Not to who you were, not to the old roles, the old silences, the old reflexes that kept you small, but the world itself, in Tarragon that has been softened by everything it has survived. This is the quiet miracle no one warns you about. Fleeing does not harden you. It does not turn you into stone. It does not build walls so high Blackjack, no one can ever reach you again. Healing makes you softer, in a way that is not weakness, but wisdom. A softness that knows its own strength. A softness that does not collapse into old wounds, nor abandon itself for old patterns. A softness that feels like standing barefoot on the ground of your own soul. Reinforced to the world with this softness, calibration is its own kind of courage. Because the world that once wounded you will still be loud. Blackjack, bilingual, still pull at the edges of your peace into shapes you no longer fit. And yet, something inside you remains unmoved. You listen differently now. You speak differently. You choose differently. Not because you are guarding yourself, but because you have finally met the part of you that is worth protecting. This is the return, moving through familiar places with an unfamiliar freedom. You walk into old rooms and feel your body speak first. You sense your boundaries, butterflies buffering the world crosses them. You feel the subtle tightening in your chest when something is wrong, and this time, you don't ignore it. You feel the quiet expansion when something is right, and this time, you don't run from it. Prohibition becomes a companion, not a warning. Your body becomes a home, not a battleground. Your heart becomes a guide, not a liability. And the world, the same world that once misunderstood you, overlooked you, took from you, expected too much from you, or loved you too little. You begin to see it. Blackjack, but as an enemy, but Kremlin you can navigate with grace. You do not shrink yourself to be loved. You do not dim yourself to be chosen. Flushed, you do not abandon yourself to belong. You return with a softness that refuses to disappear again. A softness that knows. You can stay open without being unguarded. Stay loving without losing yourself. Bending gentle without becoming small. Jung wrote that we become whole not by growing harder, but by bringing light into the places that were once dark. And that is what you have done. You have brought your soul back home, piece by piece, truth by truth, night by night. And now, in the quiet glow of this new life, you can feel it, the subtle hum of a woman withdrawing to herself. You move with a different kind of presence. You breathe with a different kind of ease. You love with a different kind of clarity, not to be saved, not to be chosen, but because love flows naturally from a heart that is no longer at war with itself. This is the return. Not triumphant, blankets, nickel, not a parade, but a soft, luminous re-entry into a world that feels less frightening because you are no longer facing it as a woman divided. Wallpaper, you are whole now, and wholeness changes everything. The world has not changed, but you have, and somehow that is more than enough to begin again. A breath to return home. If you're still here, still listening, still breathing with me, then something inside you has already begun. Not finished, not perfected, just begun. And that is enough. Before you go, place one hand over your heart, gently, like you're touching something sacred, because you are. Feel the quiet rise beneath your palm. Soft, steady rhythm. He has carried you through every descent, every night of breaking, every silent rising. This heartbeat is your proof, your reminder. your compass. Keyboards take one slow breath in, not to fill yourself, but to meet yourself. And exhale, not to let go, but to soften. You don't have to remember everything we said tonight. Your body remembers. Your soul remembers. Your shadow remembers. And the woman you are becoming, she remembers most of all. As you step back into your life, into your relationships, your choices, your quiet moments, your ordinary days, carry this truth gently. You can return to the world without leaving yourself behind. If the patterns call you back, if the ache grows loud again, if the descent whispers your name in the night, come back here. Come back to this space. Come back to your breath. Come back to yourself. If this journey touched something inside you, if it helped you name a truth you didn't know how to speak, if it opened even the smallest doorway, pry back into your own heart, line back. Subscribe, not as a transaction, not as a number, but as a gesture, a quiet, intentional act of self-care, a way of saying, I choose to keep walking toward myself. And if something in you feels called to share, a thought, a memory, a moment you recognized in these words, it below. Your story may be the lantern someone else needs to see their own path. Thank you for letting me walk with you tonight. Thank you for your breath, your presence, your courage, and above all, thank you for choosing the woman. You are slowly, softly, beautifully becoming. Until next time, inhale gently, exhale deeply, and trust the quiet light that is already growing inside you.